In actuality, the president may not have as much impact over the economy as many people believe. The Federal Reserve, for example, has a much more direct influence over how well the economy performs. To be honest, the president does have some economic influence. When we look at the data, which we'll do soon, the figures will be what they were when their tenure ended. We see that most presidents have been helpful for the economy in some respects but not in others. Lyndon B. Johnson was President of the United States from 1963 to 1969. 2.6% GDP growth, 3.4% unemployment rate, 4.4% annual inflation rate. The poverty rate was 12.80%. Per capita real disposable income, $17,181. Per capita disposable income, inflation adjusted, $130,520. Lyndon B. Johnson was responsible for numerous noteworthy achievements, including the Clean Air Act and the Civil Rights Act. His presidency had modest GDP growth but the greatest inflation-adjusted income and the lowest unemployment rate on this list. In terms of inflation and poverty rates, he ranks in the center of the pack. Richard Nixon, 1969 to 1974. GDP growth rate, 2.0%, 5.5% unemployment rate, 10.9% inflation rate. The poverty rate is 12.00%. Per capita real disposable income, $19,621. Per capita disposable income, adjusted for inflation, $110,961. During his presidency, not only did he have the second highest rate of inflation, but also the second highest inflation-adjusted income per capita. GDP growth was the fifth lowest under his presidency, although unemployment was in the center of the pack. Gerald Ford was president from 1974 until 1977. 2.8% GDP growth, 7.5% unemployment rate, 5.2% annual inflation rate. The poverty rate was 11.90%. Per capita real disposable income, $20,780. Per capita disposable income, adjusted for inflation, $95,602. Ford's administration, which lasted only 895 days, had the second highest unemployment rate, after only George W. Bush's presidency during the Great Recession. On the plus side, he had the third highest GDP growth and low poverty rates. During his time in office, inflation was also the third highest. Carter, Jimmy, 1977 to 1981. GDP growth rate, 4.6%, 7.4% unemployment rate, 11.8% inflation rate, 13.00% poverty rate. Per capita real disposable income, $21,891. Per capita disposable income, adjusted for inflation, $67,143. Jimmy Carter was president for 4 years, from 1977 to 1981, and his presidency was remarkable in many ways. His presidency had by far the highest GDP growth, more than 1% more than that of President Joe Biden. He had the highest inflation rate and the third highest unemployment rate, however. In terms of poverty rates, he ranks in the center of the pack. Reagan, Ronald, 1981 to 1989. 2.1% rise in GDP, 5.4% unemployment rate, 4.7% inflation rate. The poverty rate was 13.10%. Per capita real disposable income, $27,080. Per capita disposable income, adjusted for inflation, $60,887. Reagan's administration was defined primarily by numbers that did not stand out on either end. His unemployment rate is the fifth lowest, but it is 2% higher than Johnson's. He ranks sixth in terms of inflation, but at 4.7%, inflation during Reagan's administration was less than half that of Carter's. What stands out the most about him is his 13.10% poverty rate, which is just slightly lower than George H.W. Bush, who has the highest poverty percentage on this list. George Herbert Walker Bush, 1989 to 1993. GDP growth rate, 0.7%, 7.3% unemployment rate, 3.3% annual inflation rate. The poverty rate was 14.50%. Per capita real disposable income, $27,990. Per capita disposable income, inflation adjusted, $54,005. In terms of numbers, The aforementioned George H.W. Bush doesn't have much going for him. He has the highest poverty rate and the third lowest GDP growth. His unemployment rate is likewise high, at 7.3%, only slightly lower than Jimmy Carter's. His largest victory is in inflation, where he ranks fourth on this list. Clinton, Bill, 1993 to 2001. GDP growth rate, 0.3%, 4.2% unemployment rate, 3.7% annual inflation rate. The poverty rate was 11.30%. Per capita real disposable income, $34,216, adjusted for inflation. Per capita disposable income is $53,895. In terms of numbers, Clinton's presidency was not dissimilar to that of his predecessor, highlighting the president's limited authority over the economy. Clinton, for example, had relatively small GDP growth and a low rate of inflation. Having said that, he is the polar opposite of HW in terms of poverty. HW has the highest poverty rate, while Clinton has the lowest. In comparison to his predecessor, Clinton has the third lowest unemployment rate. President George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009. GDP growth was -1.2%, 7.8% unemployment rate, 0.0% inflation rate. The poverty rate was 13.20%. Real disposable income per capita, $37,814. Adjusted disposable income per capita, $49,141. Serving amid the Great Recession ensured that Bush's numbers would be dismal. He is, in fact, the only president with a negative GDP growth rate and the greatest unemployment rate. His poverty rate is also the third highest. He does, however, have the lowest inflation rate of any president on this list, since he is the only one with nil, 0.0% inflation. Barack Hussein Obama, 2009 to 2017. GDP growth, 1.0%, 4.7% unemployment rate, 2.5% annual inflation rate. The poverty rate is 14.00%. Per capita real disposable income, $42,914. Per capita disposable income, inflation adjusted, $48,811. Barack Obama had the difficult task of taking office near the conclusion of the Great Recession, which may explain some of his results. For example, GDP growth was the fourth lowest under him, but far higher than his predecessor. Under Obama, the poverty rate was also the second highest. To his credit, he has the fourth lowest unemployment rate in the country, a dramatic contrast to Bush. During his presidency, inflation was likewise low. Donald Trump, from 2017 to 2021. 2.6% GDP growth, the unemployment rate is 6.4%. 1.4% annual inflation rate, the poverty rate is 11.90%. Per capita real disposable income, $48,286. Per capita disposable income, inflation adjusted, $48,286. When it comes to statistics, Donald Trump is mostly better than average. During his tenure, inflation was only 1.4%, the second lowest in history. His poverty rate throughout his years is also tied for second lowest on this list with Ford. He also had the fourth highest GDP growth rate. However, at almost 6%, his unemployment rate was on the high side, ranking him seventh in that area. Joe Biden, from 2021 to the present. 2.6% GDP growth, 3.5% unemployment rate, 5.0% annual inflation rate. The poverty rate is 12.80%. Per capita real disposable income, $46,682. Per capita disposable income, adjusted for inflation, $46,557. As of this writing, Biden has been in office for just more than 2 years, making it difficult to compare him to prior presidents who served a single term or two. Nonetheless, Biden's unemployment rate is the second lowest on this list, and his GDP growth rate is the second highest. In terms of poverty and inflation, he ranks in the center of the pack. One common theme with every president in this list is the fact that per capita disposable income has consistently dropped with each president when adjusted for inflation. This is not progress and may very well play a major role in the ups and downs of each economic cycle. What do you think? Based on the data presented, which president has had the best success? Leave a comment below. Take care and remember that your money matters.